You won't believe what had been secretly happening behind the scenes of one of the most powerful churches in America. For years, people saw Pastor Mike Todd as a breath of fresh air, young, bold, full of energy, and completely different from the traditional pastors they grew up watching. His sermons went viral. His stage presence was electric. People laughed, cried, and clapped as he brought Bible stories to life like no one else. To many, Mike Todd wasn't just preaching, he was leading a movement. He spoke in a way the younger generation could understand. Social media loved him. He was everywhere, on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, spreading the word of God in his own unique style. But let me tell you, not everything was as pure as it seemed. At the center of it all was Transformation Church, a place that looked more like a concert than a traditional church. Flashing lights, massive screens, and a worship experience that felt more like a music festival than Sunday service. People loved it. They felt seen, accepted, inspired. Mike Todd became a symbol of what modern Christianity could look like. But this is where it gets interesting. While most churches preached strict tithing, giving 10% of your income to the church, Pastor Mike suddenly said something that flipped everything. In one sermon, he boldly said, "Tithing is not a law we have to follow. It's a principle, not a rule." And just like that, the internet exploded. Some celebrated him for freeing people from guilt. Others accused him of twisting the Bible to gain attention. But here's the shocking part. While Pastor Mike was telling people they didn't have to tithe, Transformation Church kept growing, fast. The building got bigger, the sound systems louder, the furniture fancier, and Mike himself? He wore designer outfits that cost more than most people's rent. People began asking, if tithing isn't required, where is all this money coming from? That's when the real questions started. Some whispered that the church's finances weren't as open as they claimed. A few staff members, brave enough to question things, were quietly removed or silenced. People began to feel that if you didn't agree with the leadership, you didn't belong. Then, destiny took an unexpected turn. A private voice recording between Mike and his wife somehow leaked. It wasn't meant for the public, but someone close, maybe too close, made sure it got out. And when it did, everything changed. The clip was short, but the voices were full of stress, frustration, and emotion. It didn't sound like the smiling couple we saw on stage every Sunday. It sounded real. Too real. And just like that, the image of the perfect pastor couple started to fall apart. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. If this was how they spoke in private, what else were they hiding? The moment that clip hit the internet, it was like a crack appeared in the shiny, perfect glass window. And that crack kept spreading. People who once defended Mike started asking serious questions. And those who already doubted him, they began digging even deeper. The conversation in the audio hinted at secrets, stress, arguments, maybe even regret. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It felt like something darker was waiting just beneath the surface. The leaked conversation had barely cooled down when the next wave hit. And this time, it wasn't just whispers, it was voices, real ones. Former staff members, people who had once stood shoulder to shoulder with Pastor Mike on the stage and behind the scenes, started to speak out. Some showed their faces, others chose to stay anonymous. But what connected all of them was one thing. Their stories didn't match the glowing, perfect picture the church had always shown the world. One former team member said, "It stopped being about God a long time ago. It became about image, numbers, and control." Another claimed that anytime someone asked too many questions, they were either pushed aside or guilted into silence. And what makes this story different? These weren't just complaints. They were warnings. Warnings that the foundation of the church wasn't as strong as they thought. People began to notice patterns. Staff being replaced quietly, volunteers being forced to sign NDAs, and rules changing behind closed doors. The church's image remained polished on the outside, but inside it was getting harder to hide the tension. And then came the topic no one wanted to talk about: money. For years, Transformation Church had received millions in donations. People gave generously, believing they were supporting a mission from God. But now, that trust was being shaken. Where did all that money go? The church never gave clear answers. Public records were vague, too vague. And while the finances remained unclear, Mike's lifestyle got louder. Expensive watches, high-end sneakers, luxury trips. The internet turned into a battlefield. Some defended Mike, saying, "He's human. He deserves nice things too." But others weren't so kind. Is this how Jesus would live? They asked. That question echoed across comment sections and live stream chats. But this is where it gets interesting. The drama didn't just stop at money or leadership drama. A close friend of Mike's, someone who had been with him long before the fame, came forward in an emotional interview. His words sent shockwaves. Mike changed, he said. The Mike I knew would have never allowed this. But then, he dropped a bombshell. He said there was a scandal, something buried, something deeper than money, and it had been covered up for years. Let me tell you, that statement turned everything upside down. The church, already under pressure, now had to deal with the idea that someone had been hurt and silenced. PR teams scrambled, emergency meetings were held, and Mike, he went completely silent. No posts, no sermons, no statements, nothing. And when a man like Mike, known for his voice, his energy, his presence, goes silent, that's when people really start talking. The silence was louder than any sermon he ever preached. People refreshed his Instagram every hour. Supporters hoped for clarity. Critics waited for confirmation. And then, just when things couldn't get more intense, it happened. A sealed document, never meant to be seen by the public, was leaked online. It was passed to a journalist by someone who used to work inside the church, and within hours, it spread like wildfire. This wasn't just a rumor anymore. It was real, it was legal, and it was dark. The document revealed a settlement, quiet, covered, sealed tight. A young woman, once a church volunteer, had filed a complaint years ago. It never reached the news. It was buried under legal language, NDAs, and cash. The church had paid her to go away. No public apology, no admission of guilt, just a signature, a check, and silence. People were stunned. Could this be the very scandal Mike's friend had warned about? Could this be the secret hiding in the shadows all this time? Some called it a smear campaign. Others said it was justice finally catching up. But for many, it felt personal. They didn't just feel betrayed by a pastor, they felt like their faith was being shaken. Again, people cried, people questioned, people prayed, because no one, not even the loudest believers, could deny that something was wrong. As the leaked settlement spread across the internet, something shifted, not just in the public's opinion, but deep inside the walls of Transformation Church itself. The carefully built image of unity and strength began to crack. Old clips of Pastor Mike started resurfacing, but now they sounded different. There was one video in particular, Mike speaking passionately about being transparent in the dark so you don't get exposed in the light. At the time, it felt powerful, but now it felt ironic, almost haunting. Comment sections were on fire. Was he warning himself? Some asked. Did he know this day would come? Then, the story took another wild turn. An anonymous source released a voice note, a short audio clip, but one that would throw gasoline on an already burning fire. The voice sounded exactly like Mike's, and in it, he spoke with someone close to him. His tone was anxious, almost panicked. And then came the words that left people frozen. They don't know everything. If that part comes out, it's over. Just like that, the world realized we still didn't know the full story. What didn't they know? What was still buried? Theories began flying. From secret relationships to deeper financial scandals, even personal struggles that had been completely hidden. Everyone had their own guess, but the truth was, no one really knew. And that unknown, that dangerous silence, kept people glued to the drama. Meanwhile, inside the church, things were falling apart fast. A few assistant pastors stepped down. No public statements, just quiet exits. Then, one of the worship leaders unfollowed the church's social media accounts and made a cryptic post, "I stayed quiet too long." That single post got shared thousands of times. And it was clear, something was unraveling. Former church members also began to share their stories. Some talked about being manipulated. Others said they were told not to question leadership or speak out against what they saw behind the scenes. One woman wrote, "We were told to never question the anointed. We were told our doubt was disobedience." It no longer felt like just one man's fall. It felt like an entire system had been exposed, a system that protected power, silenced victims, and covered truth in polished sermons. And through all of this, Mike Todd remained completely silent. Weeks passed. No live streams, no Instagram stories, no interviews. Just silence. And every day that passed, the silence grew heavier. People waited. Some hoped he'd return and clear things up. Others just wanted the final truth to come out. But nothing happened until one unexpected Sunday morning. At exactly 9:00 a.m., Transformation Church's Instagram posted a black screen with only 5 chilling words written in white. "He's ready to speak now." The internet exploded. People from all over, fans, critics, bloggers, journalists, prepared for the moment. The live stream was scheduled for 10 a.m. And when it began, more than 800,000 people were watching live. This wasn't just a sermon anymore. This was a moment that would decide everything. The camera turned on, but this time there were no flashing lights, no big stage, no music, just Mike, sitting alone, wearing a plain hoodie, looking tired, worn out, like a man carrying a weight too heavy for words. And for the first few seconds, he said nothing. He just stared at the camera, his eyes red like he hadn't slept in days. Then finally, he opened his mouth and said, "I owe you the truth." As Pastor Mike sat in silence, thousands held their breath. The man who had once lit up stages with confidence now looked like someone who had been stripped down to his bare soul. His voice cracked as he began to speak. He didn't open with a prayer or scripture. He didn't preach. He confessed, slowly, honestly, painfully. He started to unpack everything. He admitted that somewhere along the way, pride had taken over, that the success, the fame, the platform, it had become bigger than the message. He said, "I let the performance become more important than the purpose." He didn't blame the media. He didn't accuse the people who leaked the audio, the documents, or the voice notes. In fact, he said they were right to hold him accountable. He apologized, not with flashy words, but with raw regret. He said he had failed the people who trusted him, the church that supported him, and most importantly, he had failed God. But then, this is where the story took another twist that nobody saw coming. Mike looked directly into the camera and said, "There's one more thing. Something no one knows." The chat section exploded instantly. People leaned in. Some started crying before he even finished. And then, with tears in his eyes, he said, "I didn't just lose my way. I lost my heart years ago, and I've been faking it ever since." He admitted that the more popular he became, the emptier he felt. He said that while the church was growing, his spirit was dying. That every time he smiled on stage, he felt further from the truth. He said, "I built a version of myself that was bulletproof and fake. I thought if I kept performing, God would still bless it. But I was wrong. I've been sick in my soul, and I'm done hiding." There was no comeback announcement, no plans for a healing tour or a return date. He simply said he was stepping away. For real this time. No backdoor meetings, no secret leadership, just silence, healing, and accountability. And just like that, the live stream ended. No music, no final prayer. Just Mike slowly standing up and walking off screen, like a man finally putting something heavy down. The internet went wild. Some people forgave him instantly, saying this was the most honest moment they'd ever seen from a pastor. Others weren't convinced, calling it damage control dressed as humility. Some said it was a powerful moment of truth. Others called it manipulation. But one thing was clear. Pastor Mike Todd, as the world once knew him, was gone. The fallout continued in the days that followed. Some church members left, others stayed, hoping things would change. The leadership promised to rebuild trust, to be more transparent, but for many, the damage had already been done. It wasn't just about Mike anymore, it was about a system that allowed this to happen, a system that praised the performance and ignored the warning signs, a system that silenced questions and protected power. And while people tried to make sense of it all, one question still lingered in the air. What was that part, he said, would end everything, if it ever came out? Because even after the confession, even after the tears, that mystery still hung in the shadows. And maybe that's the part that hurt the most, not knowing what else might still be hiding.